EcoFlow finally releases their new Delta Pro 3. There is no Delta Pro 2. In July of 2021, the Delta Pro was released, which I purchased this 2 months after and been using it consistently. It has definitely been a game changer when it comes to portable power. And now that the new Delta Pro 3 has been released, this is just something that is really much of an upgrade over the original Delta Pro. If you were a fan of the Delta Pro, well then you're gonna like the new DP3, which is what we will probably call it from here on out. The new DP3 comes with a higher inverter than the original Delta Pro, which had 3600 watts. Now this one rated at 4000 watts, which it almost has as much power as his Proton Pack. So now it gives you extra power, which the Delta Pro did very well at being able to sustain those loads, just like the new DP3. Along with the new Delta Pro 3 is also the new Smart Generator 4000. I'm going to be making a separate video with the Smart Generator 4000 as there's so much information to cover. I will have that video out in a couple weeks, but I will show you tons of cool stuff and features that I've already found with it, not to mention the use of external fuel tanks and more. I think a lot of people are really going to like the new Smart Generator 4000. But again, we will talk about that in a couple weeks after the video of the new DP3. Now the new DP3 also has more battery capacity at 4096 watt hours. You can also run it 4000 cycles before it reaches 80% capacity, which this would take you over 10 years. The new DP3 also comes with a 5-year warranty, and with its 4000 watt inverter you can also activate the X Boost function, which this allows for 6000 watts of power while using more resistive type loads such as hair dryers, and it has also an 8000 watt surge for more inductive loads like power washers, or if you happen to be firing up AC units and more. Now Delta Pro 3 can be charged up to 1800 watts while utilizing AC, up to 2600 watts while utilizing solar, and up to 3200 watts by utilizing DC input from new Smart Generator 4000. But this can also handle up to 4000 watts charging while utilizing a 50 amp 240 volt outlet. And if you have an extra battery, this can handle up to 7000 watts of input power by either utilizing new Smart Generator 4000 or solar input and also high AC input. Also, EcoFlow released their new alternator charger recently. This allows you to charge it by utilizing the alternator in your tow vehicle, or if you happen to be a van or camper type life, this allows you alternator charging from the battery up to 800 watts. Now when it comes to size and weight of the new DP3, this is actually quite a bit bigger than the original Delta Pro. The original Delta Pro measured about 25 inches long, while the new DP3 runs about 27.5. Now when it comes to width, it is also wider. The original Delta Pro was around 10 inches, while this one is now 11.75 inches. So it is a little bit wider depending on maybe where you have plans to put this. And at the widest point, which is down here at the wheels, instead of 11.25 inches for Delta Pro, the new DP3 now comes in at 13.5 inches wide. So again, depending on where you want to place this, this might be something to consider or think about if you're maybe looking at one option or the other. Now, even though Delta Pro and DP3 are portable, this one does weigh quite a bit more. This one now weighs about 113 pounds as to opposed to original Delta Pro weighing about 96. So there is a little bit of a difference in weight, and not to mention when you pick it up, it's actually pretty noticeable. Now the new DP3 comes with features like 120 volt and now 240 volt. This allows much greater use for being able to utilize this for home backup. You can now utilize a generator inlet box, which this will be able to provide power to the whole panel of your home. You can also simplify it by utilizing a transfer switch with critical loads of your choice. This makes it a really cheap option for backup power, or if you're also wanting to load shed to help drop your power bills, which then this can help start paying for itself in the long run. You can also hook it up to EcoFlow Smart Home Panel 2, which this allows automated functions for when the power goes out, it automatically kicks in, or you can also load shed that way. You can assign up to 12 different circuits, or if you want, you can use double pole breakers in order to get up to 24 circuits, but you can only assign up to 12. Now there are also more upgrades when it comes to the DP3, like a new cooling system that brings in cool air from the front, directs it through the back of the unit to help keep this unit cool. On the other side of the unit, you will also see a DC out, which this is going to be your 5521 port, not to mention remote communications. This is so you can have an external remote display and also your Anderson 30 amp outlet. This way you can run DC loads such as diesel heaters are real popular because a 12 volt socket doesn't provide enough power, so the 30 amp Anderson is a much better option. They also included a TTR30. This allows you to power up much smaller trailers as well by making it simple to have a plug-in. Now, one thing you will want to know is if your trailer happens to have a built-in EMS or PMS system on board, EcoFlow now adds a GFCI switch on board already. So no longer are you going to need a bonding plug. This allows you to bond the unit automatically if you happen to be using one of these. This way, if you happen to have one of those onboard power systems, you can easily just press the switch and this will bond the unit. Or if you leave it unswitched and you have the unit off, this will make it much like a gas generator and make it to where it's a floating neutral. So if you do have an external surge protector, such as this Power Watchdog with EPO, I recommend just saving these for the RV parks. This is definitely one of the best ones you can get, but since EcoFlow already has so many protections on it, it's not needed, and sometimes the EPO on the Power Watchdog can cause some premature tripping when you're using heavy loads such as like your AC and more. As we take a look at the back of the unit, this is where they've added a few things that are different from Delta Pro. Now when it comes to charging, you still have your AC in port, which this allows for up to 1800 watts, which you can control the rate with inside the app. They have now included dual solar inputs, which this is super important when it comes to utilizing these in specific off-grid locations, because there are a lot of times when you want to plug in two different types of arrays, or if you are using it in the RV market, this is where you can use the main array that might be on top of your RV and also be able to deploy ground mount solar panels. This way you can bring in extra if you happen to be parked in under a tree. This allows you other options, so having two solar inputs is much better obviously than having a single. Now when it comes to the solar inputs, you have one that can handle up to 150 volts, just like original Delta Pro, but the secondary input is only rated up to 60 volts, and it's very important that you don't go over these because you can fry the MPPT controllers that are inside. Now, if there was something I would have liked to have seen changed is the different voltage on the low voltage input. Having 60 volts makes it a little bit tougher if you're wanting to use residential panels and more, but like I said earlier with ground deploy panels, if you're putting these in parallel, this gives you different options obviously to be able to deploy different types of setups, but I'm happy that it has two solar inputs. You still have two inputs for being able to add on extra batteries to over 12 kilowatt hours of power, and also gone are the days of those hard rigid cables that do stick out. They now have a new flex cable like this one. This is very popular as it has been utilized inside EcoFlow's power kit for a long time. So now they have gone and upgraded cables to these, which are nice and flexible. So you can now put this in a much smaller location without the cables interfering. Now, since the new DP3 can also handle DC charging from the smart generator, you will need one of these adapters, which this is going to be coming with your smart generator, whether you utilize the old one or the new one. The original dual fuel smart generator was able to put out about 1800 watts, and you can still utilize that generator into the new DP3. The new Smart Generator 4000 can provide up to about 3200 watts, but you will need to use the adapter, so this entails you lose one of your battery inputs. If it was me, I would have liked to have seen an XT50 connection point on DP3. That would have made it a lot easier to maintain both of your batteries while still in place. Now, having the 5+8 port does allow you to plug into Smart Home Panel 2 and allow you to also utilize the double voltage hub. The double voltage hub allows for true 50 amp out, and so you can then take two of the DP3s, plug this in for even more power if you don't want to utilize Smart Home Panel 2. Now, there are some things you will want to know about the new DP3. While charging this, you are still able to utilize 120 or 240 volt functions out of the inverter, so you can still use your favorite inverter generator, but you can charge DP3 with 240 volt, but the only problem is while charging at 240 volt, it does shut off the inverters. So this is something that maybe we will see a firmware be able to fix, because that is something that would be pretty handy. The only way to allow you to use a 240 volt, well, you'll have to charge at 120 and only up to 1800 watts. But when it comes to charging with Smart Generator 4000, you can still have functions of the 120 or 240 volt inverter. So this is actually something that is nice about the Smart Generator 4000, is much like DC charging with the generator, or by also utilizing solar, this still allows functionality of the inverters at 120 and 240 volt. Now, during my time playing with this and testing it, EcoFlow was nice enough to give me a couple months to be able to get some data on this. So I ended up doing several tests, such as DC testing, not to mention AC testing, such as capacity tests. I ended up doing a 0.2 C rate test on this, and this proved that it showed 95% as far as capacity out. By utilizing a standardized test, this is how we can gauge other power stations in the market by keeping this test the same and equal. I also contacted a couple friends of mine, such as Todd Parker and also Jason at Jasonoid channel. That way we could compare all three of our units for quality control. Each of us received pretty much the same marks, around 94 to 97% capacity. So this ends up showing that EcoFlow did a good job as far as maintaining quality control and also testing multiple units for Delta Pro 3. That way our test results are all equal. And even while new Delta Pro 3 is under heavy loads, whether it's from charging or AC loads, it is much quieter than the original Delta Pro. Even at high-speed fans at 3 feet away, I was still in the low 50 decibel range when it came to testing this, which this is a much improvement over the original Delta Pro, which even though they did do firmware updates, it's still relatively loud if you happen to be sitting next to it. Now, I did do several types of load testing, whether it was load shedding or also running loads in my house. I also utilized it in my RV as well. I have a 50 amp RV with 2 AC units, one with a 15K AC unit and a 13.5. Now, I did add soft starts to both of these, as it not only extends the life of the compressors inside, but it will also extend the life of maybe the DP3 if you happen to use it for those types of situations. Now, this had no problem firing up the larger AC first, and then I did fire up my 13.5K AC as well. And as you take a look at the numbers here, I still had plenty of headroom, and when looking at the pure sine wave graph, this was still plenty clean enough, as everybody is wondering how clean is the power that comes out of these. Well, and just like in EcoFlow fashion, it passed with no problems, and I even had enough headroom to be able to fire up the microwave when both of these units were still running, which was pretty impressive. This was able to handle a 30-second load with the microwave, both ACs going, and it didn't really shed much of a beat. Now, I did want to show you this compatibility chart because the new Delta Pro 3 is compatible with old Delta Pro batteries, but the new batteries for Delta Pro 3 are not compatible with the original Delta Pro, but everything else that we talked about today is compatible with the new DP3. Now, Delta Pro 3 is expandable up to 36 kilowatt hours or 48 kilowatt hours, but you will need to utilize 3 of the new Smart Generator 4000s to get that 48 kilowatt hours. Okay, so pros and cons. Now, new DP3, adding the 240 volt is huge. That is really something everybody's been wanting. You can still utilize 120 and 240 volt while charging with AC at 120, but it would have been nice to be able to utilize at least one of those features while charging with 240 volt. So that right there is maybe one of the cons. Another one of the cons, at least in my eyes, is the dual solar input. I would have liked to see 80 or 100 volts versus the 60 volts, and if I had it my way, 2 150s would have been amazing. And when it comes to the last con that I can think of, is really the XT150 port being added would have been ideal. That way you can utilize the Smart Generator 4000 while leaving both extra batteries plugged in. This way you don't have to remove them while you are utilizing Smart Generator and only one battery. Now, the new Delta Pro 3 is going to come in at a launch price at $36.99 at the time of this video, and they will have bundle deals as well, which you can check the links down in the description. So I hope you guys like this video. If you have questions, there's a link in the description called Ask Me, and if you want to check out this other video right here,